welcome back. I'm Liz Charlene Tate, and this is season 6 of the Itsy Bitsy Zoomcast. I am the lead coach from the Western Professional Development Center, and this season is called Decisions, Decisions, Decisions. From the day-to-day to the courageous and bold, examining the infinite decisions made by and for early childhood. And I found a quote that I wanted to share to start our recording off, and it goes like this. Family childcare is not babysitting. It's not comparable to any childcare center. It's families in relationships with a professional care provider in an environment that becomes, by design, a second home. And a whole bunch of people partnering, trusting, caring, and educating each other. And that quote is just so fitting because this episode we titled A Love Letter to Family Childcare, because we are just so thrilled at our growing connection to family childcare providers, professionals, and entrepreneurs in Western Mass. So Sheila, can you share more about this title, A Love Letter to Family Childcare?
Yes. My name is Sheila Gould. I'm chair of the education department at Holyoke Community College. And every season, Liz and I do this fun brainstormy get together where we just let all our weird ideas flow. But then from that comes things that are on our minds. And so this season, we are developing this focus on the decisions, who makes decisions for family childcare, the decisions we make day to day, the decisions to go back to school, all of that. And when we thought about who is making constant decisions, we just thought our family childcare providers are just the heroes of constant decision making. And then we went on a tangent about how much we love the family childcare providers in our community that we've become connected to and that we hear about. And we just started gushing, I'm having more and more early childhood students that own a family childcare, and we've been finding ways for them to do their practicum with coaching through the Western Professional Development Center. And it's just been beautiful and rewarding for everyone involved. So as corny as it sounds, the perfect title for this episode was A Love Letter to FCCs. And that's how we got here.
Yes, indeed. Yes. And so I was ridiculously excited to have the folks on that we had a conversation with last episode. I'm just as excited this episode. We have 3 very special guests with us tonight. And the first person that I'll have her introduce herself is Felicita Lopez. Hi, Felicita.
Hi everyone. Well, my name is Felicita Lopez, and I am a family child care provider for a dual language program here in Western Massachusetts. I'm also an early education adjunct professor at Holyoke Community College, as well as a Strong Start bilingual coach for family child care educators. Lastly, I'm a director and creator of 2 nonprofits, community centers, both here and in the Dominican Republic.
Okay. It's been so amazing to have you on our Western Professional Development Center team too. It's been just wonderful working with you as coaches. So I'm so glad you're here. Meryl, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Meryl Maselli. I also am lucky enough to work with Strong Start as a coach with the Western Mass Professional Development Center. And I most recently have been an education coordinator at a local nonprofit in Western Massachusetts. And although not a FCC family childcare provider, I have been a different FCC provider, a forest childcare provider, which I'll talk more about later.
Right on.
And Sandy, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Sandy, and I studied early childhood education at UMass and graduated in 1992, a really long time ago, as a first-generation graduate student. And I worked at a center for a couple of years and then opened up my own family child care 28 years ago and have been loving it and doing it ever since.
That is fabulous. When I'm listening to you all, I'm reminded I was an FCC for 1 year.
Oh my goodness, I
For
forgot.
1 year, yep. It was not for me because I didn't have great fiscal training. And I was really, really young, but working with the families and the children was magical. And when you think about your connection to those families, I'm still in touch with all of those families today. And, through social media, I get to watch their kiddos grow up. And I can't imagine, for those of you that have done this work for so long, the amount of families that you have touched and that love you. I think of the FCC where my daughter Penelope went, and I just adore that family. Her sons, the grandparents that live next door, just absolutely magical, wholesome, well-rounded, beautiful experiences we had there. Are you ready to jump in, Liz?
I am, yes. Thank you, Sheila. So the first question that we'd love to ask you is if you could tell us about the spark that ignited your decision to open a family child care program. And I'm wondering, Felicita, if you would start us off.
Sure. Well, I come from a human service background with a specialization in social work, and now I'm working in the early education field. And I believe that in order to create and be part of the positive change that we want today, we must invest in early education and impact the lives of the children that we work with, along with their families. As a family child care provider, I do not only work with the child, I actually work with the family, and the relationship is something that is really important. And so that inspired me to become a day family child care provider. I wanted to be part of the change and impact, be that seed that helps a child and to be a individual that will be productive in the future. So that's basically what inspired me to become a family child care provider.
I'm so glad you were inspired.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. And I know the families feel the same way. So Meryl, you hinted at it before, but your experience was a little different.
Yes. So FCC Forest Child Care Provider, it's my new term I'm going to coin. It is a little different. I previously was an international school teacher. So I did teach early childhood overseas, and my family and I were moving back to the US so I could fulfill this dream of opening a forest school. It happened a little differently and a little faster due to the pandemic, but it was, I'm using past tense, it is done, but it was all I could have hoped and dreamed for. And part of what prompted it to begin when it did during the pandemic was I had my my own nearly kindergarten age son home with me at that time. And I knew what I dreamed for him for kindergarten to look like as an early childhood educator and mama, that I wished for his days to be spent in the woods, digging in mud and roaming the rivers and playing with children and climbing trees. And we were able to do it. And we were able to do it with other children in our care. And it was a really beautiful thing. Similar actually to what you shared, Sheila. The fiscal part wasn't really my strong suit. So the dream was beautiful for what it was for 2 years. And now I have an almost second grader.
And Sandy, how about for you? What was it that inspired you to open your program?
What inspired me was having a baby and also my love for being with kids and needing a paycheck. I had planned to go back to the center I was working at, and I was going to make $25 a week and have my baby in the next door room, and it didn't work for us. And so my husband and I talked, and we decided let's do it at home. And I'm so glad I made that decision and have stayed pretty true to it. There's been a few times I've been like, but I've always come, I haven't stopped. I've always done it, and I love it. So,
I
yeah.
think something that people it's a complex picture to hold of all it entails to be a family child care provider. And that's why I like to say entrepreneur and business person, businesswoman, because it's so much more. It's all of the components of early childhood education and developing curriculum, but there is this fiscal piece that is so true. Yeah, so the learning that comes from being, you are the administrator, you are the enrollment coordinator, you are your fiscal department, you are your HR, you are all of it. And I think that's one of the things that we have just been in awe of as we've been getting to know more and more family child care providers. So if there's another question I could ask you, it is this: what inspired you to choose the vision, mission, and philosophy of your program? Because that was another piece that Sheila and I were talking about, is this other thing you have to decide, which is what's driving you, what's the philosophy behind what you're creating. Who would like to go first with that one?
I'll go first. My vision, my mission, and my philosophy, it all derives from who I am as a person. I believe in the importance of investing in our future. I believe in knowing that I'm creating positive change in the lives of young humans and their families. The thought of knowing that my little grain of salt will help mold the productive adult in the future, it's what inspires me. And yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I guess my core values or mission philosophy has all been based on social emotional growth, development, and communication skills. It's just, it was there in the beginning when I started, and it's always been there through the last 28, 30 years that I've been working with kids. And at a kind of deeper level, just a respect I have for kids as people and a trust that I have in them. And that's really deepened over the years, each year. Like they amaze me. So, yeah. I could tell a story about what kind of inspires me every
Yes,
day.
please.
So last week, I was playing outside. I had a couple kids. We were doing an activity, and there were two kids in the sandbox, and Benny and Malcolm, they were playing, beautifully playing. And then Benny got really sad, and it sounded like he was frustrated, maybe got hurt, but not a major, I have to run to him kind of hurt. So he starts walking over to me, and Malcolm was behind him and a few feet behind him, and his shoulders are stumped and his head's down, and he was dragging a stick behind him. So I'm like, Benny probably got bumped with the stick. And Benny came over to me, and he was standing there crying, and Malcolm put his stick away in his cubby and came to me, and he looked at me and Malcolm said, we have to have a conversation. And I'm like, okay, do you want to start? Because Benny's he's not ready to start now because he's crying. And he said, I hit Benny with a stick by mistake. But I said, sorry 3 times. And I said, that was really nice you said sorry, but he's having a tough time with this. Is there anything else you want to say or do? And we just kind of sat there for a while. He wasn't quite ready. I just held the space for those emotions that they were having. And then Malcolm leaned over, and he kind of put his head on Benny, his arm around him. And he's like, Benny, are you okay? And Benny took a breath, and he's like, yeah, I'm okay. Let's go play. And that just, like, they had that time and that space to work it out. And just the week before, Malcolm was, if that had happened, he would have run under the treehouse and hid, because he was having feelings too.
Sure.
Like he there was no right or wrong to any. They just wanted their feelings recognized and respected. And yeah, so that's just kind of what that inspires me. Sorry,
Gave
what?
them that safe space where you can make mistakes and learn your feelings, learn how to process other people's feelings in a way where there's no judgment, in a place where there's no judgment. And to have a socially, emotionally safe space is highly important. Of course, we want physical safety, but social and emotional safety, I love that that is one of your core values.
Yeah.
It's interesting, a long time ago, some seasons ago, Liz and I hosted an episode on kindergarten readiness. And the consensus between the teachers was that in the early years, they just want children to have beautiful social emotional experiences. They said, forget the letters, forget the numbers. We don't care. Please help them love themselves, feel confident, and get those social emotional skills. So thank you for the amazing, amazing changes you're making in children's lives. That's just beautiful.
I listened to that session and I was so happy to hear that from kindergarten teachers and just that, yes.
It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
message that we sort of have been shouting from the rooftops, which is most kindergarten teachers are going to tell you that it's their job to focus on letters and numbers. It's our job to create safe, trusting, nourishing environments where children can develop a rich emotional literacy, which is more important. And because then when they get to school, they can attend, that they can sit and listen, they can make peace with a friend, they can understand their feelings a little more and be able to manage the fact that for 6 hours in a public school setting, they have to put on their public persona and wait till they get home to let it all out. And so hearing these stories about the kinds of programs you have or had is just, it's just so reassuring to, I love hearing these stories. Sandy, thank you for sharing them, especially because I know Ben. So it's so sweet to hear a story about Ben. Meryl,
asked
do you have
permission.
anything?
Yeah, well, Sandy, the words you were using, time and space, those are words that really resonate with me as well. And I think that was something so interesting. When I opened my program, I had been teaching for maybe 14 years at that point in public school settings and private school settings. And there's such an alarming amount of constraints on classrooms with 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And I always felt like a square peg trying to fit in a round hole, and knowing what was right and best for children and not always being able to provide what was right and best for children. And I think something that Felicita and Sandy both touched on is really this beauty. And I think, Felicita, you use the term sculpting, right? Like clay, you're able to take your philosophy, take your core beliefs and principles, and you're able to create something beautiful, this intentional, beautiful, loving space for children that you know is right and you know is good and you know will support them now and in the future. And that was a really beautiful thing to behold, even for a short time, to just see that. And I know that must feel like an incredible gift that you get to do that every day, Sandy and Felicita.
It is.
It is.
I have a question I'd love to ask you, and it's going off script, if that's okay with everyone. I'm really curious if you could, if the wider world could know one thing about family childcare, or you could just deliver a message to people about family childcare, an assumption someone might make, or just simply by not knowing that they're missing out on when it comes to what happens in a family childcare setting, what would you want people to know?
I think you when you opened up with your statement saying that we're not babysitters, that's very important for many to know. I mean, even the wording in many institutions still have us like if we're babysitters, and we're not. It's really important for them to understand that we go beyond the structure of the school. We have a setting where they're at home still. They feel comfortable. I mean, I have many of my kids that call me grandma. And we provide, and I'm not saying that center bases don't do this, but we have, I want to say, a collaboration with the families, and because it's more one-on-one. I believe that we're investing a lot in our children. I believe that we're investing a lot with the families. The communication is really important. And I don't think that many people are seeing that with family childcare. They're just seeing, let's drop off the kids and we'll pick them up. But no, we do lesson plans with them. We do circle time with them. We do creative arts with them, and we talk to them about their feelings. I loved the example that was given. Many don't understand that we are essential. Because not every child fits in a center.
Yes.
So that's when we go the extra mile to give that child that support that they may need, that when they go home and they may not find. Or I've seen, working with older groups, what happens when we don't invest in our children, and when we don't take that time. So for me, as a family childcare provider, I think it's important for people to know that I am an educator, but I go to that extra step also, that I'm also a nourisher, and I nourish your child, and I give your child that love that many times you don't get it in the center because it's such a large group.
I think that's the key piece too, is the numbers are lower, right? And what you said is true. One size does not fit all. It's like Meryl was saying about being a square trying to fit into a circle shape. Exactly. It makes perfect sense to me that we have choices for people, whether it's family childcare or center-based, Montessori versus Reggio, academic versus not. And that it's so important. Anyone else have any thoughts about that, or something you would like viewers to know?
Kind of the emphasis of the family part of childcare, family childcare, and the connection that we make with the families. It's been a really important part of the way I go about running my business. It's important to me to have a connection with the families, and to have them connect with each other, because these are kids that are spending a huge part of their day with each other. And sometimes I have them 2, 3, 4 years, and there's such a connection there. And I'm still friends, very close with people that have been here. Some are like family to me. You just develop a really strong relationship with them. So relationship, connection.
Care is education. I've been reading a lot of the work of Carol Murray, and that is her platform, is that care is education, and we learn through caring relationships. And I think it's really important that that's acknowledged.
Can I ask a question, Sandy and Felicita? So you have both shared such strong guiding values for your family childcare programs, and there's so many decisions to make on a daily basis. So how do you hold your core guiding values with you in your daily decision making, and the many decisions you make throughout a day?
Wow, a lot of do you want to answer that one first? Or? COVID has changed us a lot. Although COVID has come and has put a lot of stress and on the families, I still hold true to my beliefs and my vision, and I just find different ways to go about to meet those goals. Understanding that we're living in in a world now where health is the most important concern. So it's hard. It's very hard. And I can give you an example. We have RSV, and I believe in true transparency with my parents, and communication is very important. So yeah, it's letting them know, hey, this is going on. Unfortunately, we're in a setting where childhood illnesses are going to happen. We have to work through this. Our protocols have changed a little bit, but we're still here, and our philosophy hasn't changed. So it's, for me, it's still doing the same thing, just taking that extra step to make sure that the children are safe and healthy during this time of the pandemic. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
You answered it beautifully.
Sorry, my mind started going to COVID.
sorry.
No, that's okay. Meryl, can you just repeat the question, please?
Yes. Just wondering about how in your daily decision making, because there's so many decisions to make in a day in a family child care program, how you continue to hold those guiding values close.
Okay. Yeah, there's constant decision making. Maybe I'll tell another story.
Do it. I love the stories.
I love your stories.
So I was outside with a couple kids, and we're playing, and I see some kids over on the treehouse, and they've got the sleds up on the treehouse, and they're looking at the slide, and they're looking at the sleds, and they're talking to each other, and I'm looking and watching them and trying to figure out what they're planning. And they yell over to me and they said, can we put the sleds down the slide? Can we slide down the slide with the sleds? And I was doing something involved, and I'm like, no. And because I was doing something, I was like, I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. So I watched them for a while, and they're still talking, and it's very clear that they're very invested in this going down the slide thing. So I finished up what I was doing and went over there, and I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about this, because it was important to them. So I think that is just really important for me in making decisions, is trusting and respecting them and willing to have a conversation. Because it wasn't just like, yeah, we can have a conversation, I'm going to say no. They knew that they were going to be listened to. And we really did have a conversation about, well, what do you think? What's your idea about this whole thing in your head? And we ended up trying it, and it was fine for a while. And then a sled broke, and then they didn't want to do it anymore because, the sled broke, and they're like, well, we don't want to break all the sleds. But having that trust and respect that we can have a conversation in the decisions that I make. And then it's the same with the parents, like making decisions. I'm like, let's have a trust and respect for each other, that we can have a conversation and then make a decision. Does that answer?
Both of your stories really have this thread of openness and trust and transparency and communication with children and families. So that was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
It's funny because HCC recently went through kind of a strategic planning process and identity building kind of thing, and developed our core values. And two of those values are trust and respect. So I loved hearing that, because it plays into the way Liz and I interact as colleagues, but also how we interact with the students that come through and what they share with us. So I loved hearing those words.
I am so glad that you were on this episode, and I feel like we could talk for another hour and about this. And I love knowing we all have sort of shared beliefs about children and families, and this idea that children aren't, and I've said this before, Sheila, but children are not practicing for the next thing. They are living their lives now, and be with them now in the moment, because that's where they are. They're not thinking about I got to know this before kindergarten. They're simply living their lives. And Sandy, for you to trust that you can talk to them and let them try going down the slide on a sled, that's the kind of preschool teacher I was. That's the kind of parent I've been, and they're okay. And I think that we need to look at our fears about risk taking or trusting children. What if we give them the tools so that they can think things through and think deeply about things, because they can, given the space and the time and the patience and the belief in them, they can. And Sheila, I just have to point out one thing before we end. Could I do a little who knows what and what knows who?
Yeah,
I
I
have-
just want to say one funny thing
Yes.
first. I think, Sandy, that you should start a podcast called I Was Outside with a Couple Kids. Just saying, I would listen.
I would listen to it too.
I would listen.
Yes.
I was outside with a couple kids.
Yes.
I wanted to share before we end all the ways in which we know each other.
Yeah.
So we're all coaches. We are all coaches and support our colleagues and educators in the field. So Felicita is a dual language coach, and among all her other jobs, she works for the PDC. And Sheila is a professor and has a very full plate and is coaching center-based programs. Meryl is coaching Sandy. And Sandy is going to start working with me. I'm going to be mentoring her through the process of coaching, because there's already somebody who wants her to be her coach.
Not surprised.
So, and that's just one of the ways in which we are all woven together. And I just was reflecting before we started tonight that when Sheila and I first started this whole thing in the beginning of the pandemic, it was May 2020, we wanted to build bridges and make connections to people. We wanted to feel connected to people because it was a really scary time. And, you know, how many years, 3+ years later, and everywhere I look now in my professional life, I can see all these bridges and pathways that weren't there before. And you're a part of that, all three of you. And it's just a beautiful thing. And I'm honored to know you and to be able to talk to you about these things. And I really hope that we'll find a way to get you back on for another episode, I'm sure. Sheila, do you want to tell everyone what the next episode is going to be about because it's another exciting episode.
So we're doing something a little different and really important this semester, especially with this episode. So tonight's episode is actually part 1 of a love letter to family childcare. Part 2 of this episode will be entirely in Spanish. And we're so excited because our colleagues who are on episode 1, I feel like I'm introducing Star Wars. Our colleagues, Emmy Phelps and Mirandali Lasenta, are going to Itsy Bitsy take over. And it's going to be their night. They will be the hosts, and they are hosting a fabulous episode in Spanish celebrating our family childcare providers. So we're really thrilled.
On the episode, she is our bridge between the 2 episodes. So she's going to carry some of the components and messages from this episode over to the next episode. And one of the women that she's coaching, actually, Nalitza Martinez,
Yes.
is going to be on the episode as well, another family childcare provider. So we're just deliriously excited about that one. So
And a
thank you,
CDA
everyone.
grad.
And yes, we haven't even talked about the fact that there's CDA plus
Yes.
career pathways connections as well. So we'll be sure that you highlight that in episode 3, Felicita.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you all for being on our episode. We are so honored to have heard your stories and your backgrounds and what drives you. And we're so glad that you're touching our field in so many meaningful ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.